of the biggest things missing from most karate dojos is impact work. Now this is obviously due to sometimes the limitations of the environments that we train in. A lot of times it's a sort of hired hall and there's no equipment that we can work with, but it's important that we do hit targets and get used to the feeling of landing techniques on something. Because there's only so much we can learn about a technique from punching and kicking in thin air. You can obviously develop good technique and good biomechanics and stuff by practicing your ki on in the dojo format, moving up and down in lines as we would do. And there's definitely significant value in that. And of course I teach that in my dojo as well. But what I also do is a lot of work on bags and pads and punch bag and stuff like this. Because it's really important that we learn how to correctly form a fist, the foot position for our kicks and distancing and all this kind of thing, and actually understand what it feels like to hit something. I've taught students where they've hit a bag or something and they buckle their wrist and all this kind of thing because they don't know the correct alignment. And this is easily corrected, and it's very quickly corrected by hitting targets. If we're hitting something and we're getting that feedback through the bag, how the feedback of that impact feels on our body, we can adjust our movement. If we're hitting and the wrist is buckling, we know the wrist needs to be aligned better. If we're hitting and it's hurting the fist or the knuckle, we land on the wrong knuckles, for example, we know to correct that and land with the first two knuckles. Even more importantly is like kicking, maigiri, front kick, getting the ball of the foot, because a lot of time when you're kicking in the air, it's easy to get away with kicking with the incorrect foot shape. So we must get used to getting the correct foot shape and then landing it on targets and conditioning the body to feel that position as we land. And if you are limited in your dojo, in the equipment you've got, invest in something outside of the dojo or get to a gym and work on some stuff. It's really going to accelerate your karate progress. You could never learn to swim by just simply understanding the technique of the stroke. You have to, at some point, get in the water and feel the resistance of the water and all this kind of thing. And this is the same for our karate. We need to understand what these techniques feel like to land on targets, not just simply in the air. I've got a video on this channel of bag work drills that you can incorporate into karate, so check that one out. But a very simple way to practice that stuff with impact is simply just to repeat our ki on movements over and over again. So if we're working on a moshigeri with the ball of the foot, just working on that kick over and over again. You don't have to worry too much about timing. Just work on landing that kick over and over, so it becomes consistent and we can land it every single time from here. Keep working that same kick over and over. A lot of times when I show that kick on a video, people say about kicking with your toes and the risk is too great. But throwing any technique at an opponent or an object is going to have a risk with it. It's about developing the muscle control, the muscle memory, so that it is consistently landed well. The risk is reduced significantly if we are practicing the technique thousands of times. If I can consistently land that ball of the foot, roundhouse or moshigeri on the bag, then the chances are I'm going to be able to land it in sparring as well, or in a self-defense situation maybe. Another thing that it teaches us, the bag, is that some of the ideas that we are maybe taught, traditionally, nukatei for striking, it's maybe less realistic, so we have to come up with different ideas for the applications in that, because I wouldn't want to send my fingers into this target, because obviously I'm going to break my fingers. If I'm going that distance, I might as well close the fist up and make a punch instead. So the bag or some impact work or makiwara are great tools in teaching you a little more about your karate, because of course, punching in the air is fine to a level, but then we need to take it further and understand how to actually apply these techniques correctly with impact. This lack of impact work is also partly to blame in a way for the kind of reputation that karate is less effective than other arts like Muay Thai, boxing, kickboxing, because they have a lot more work where they're hitting targets, and obviously the effectiveness of that is demonstrated through the pads and obviously then in sparring or full contact sparring. If we start bringing our kicks in and working more on the bag and doing a lot more impact work, we can then close that gap, and demonstrate the effectiveness of karate as an art as well. So how much pad training or impact work do you do at your dojo? Let me know in the comments. It'd be interesting to have a bit of an insight into how many people do use that in their dojos and those that don't. If you don't, hopefully this is maybe going to inspire you to do a little bit of it. And if you do, hopefully it reinforces what you're already doing. Don't forget to check out Art Martial Clothing, martial arts inspired clothing brand. Check out the link that I'll put in the description of this video. They've got some really nice training gear and casual wear as well. So I'll put a discount code in there for you as well if you want to get 20% off. Check it out, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done already, and I'll see you next time.